Hi everyone, this is Sarah Nash, the Program Manager for the National Dance Project, and with me are NDP's two really wonderful, fabulous coordinators. Some of you may know them. I'll let them each introduce themselves quickly.
I'm Kristen, and I just started here at NEFA this month, so this is my first webinar, and I'm really excited to be on the team.
Hi everyone, this is Sherry Alperman, and I'm the Grants Coordinator at the National Dance Project.
So great. So we are going to be walking you through hopefully everything it is that you need to know in order to successfully apply for a presentation grant through the National Dance Project. Some of you may have received NDP presentation grants in the past. Some of you may be new or new staff members to organizations who have received this support. But we hope everybody will be able to learn something today and that it will be really clear. And we're basically just going to walk you through the whole process bit by bit. We do intend to keep this webinar at exactly 1 hour, so we will be ending at 3 o'clock on the dot. We have places throughout where we will be taking questions, and then certainly at the end, we will try to take as many questions as we can. If we don't get to yours, please email us afterwards. So that we can make sure to answer any lingering questions that you might have. Any other sort of housekeeping things, Kristen?
No, we're recording. Everyone's been muting, and we'll make sure to stop and answer some questions. You can go ahead and type them into the chat box, and it should alert us that you have a question, and we will get to it during the webinar.
All right, here we go. Alrighty, so the National Dance Project Presentation Grant step by step. So first we'll give you an overview of NDP, then we're going to talk about what does a presentation grant support, who can apply, how it works, we'll walk you through the application process, we'll actually walk you through what the presentation grant application looks like and what it involves so that you can see all of that. Then we will also tell you how you can find out about all of the awarded presentation grants and final reports, what's involved there. We'll go over all of the deadlines and timelines that you need to be aware of. And again, at the end, we will be taking questions. All right, so the National Dance Project, through grant making and a lot of other activities, the National Dance Project supports dance in ways that are geared to enhancing partnerships between artists and presenters. And for this conversation, when we say presenters, we're really talking about any organization out there that is booking or bringing or curating artists to come to your community and perform their work, and as well as many other activities that they may do while they're there. Each year, we select 25 to 30 different projects that will be featured in engagements in hundreds of communities across the country. And these touring engagements create new connections between the public and artists, as well as building on relationships that have been established for many artists in different communities across the country, and increase access to the arts and the creative process overall. And just to note, we're coming up on our 20th anniversary, and in almost 20 years, we have distributed more than $28 million in funding to support the dance field, including the creation of works and their presentation around the country.
And the National Dance Project receives lead funding from the Doris Duke Charitable Foundation and the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, with additional support from the National Endowment for the Arts. We do also receive special initiatives funding from the Cultural Services of the French Embassy and the French American Cultural Exchange. And we are very grateful to the funders who support this work and make it possible to support you all in getting dance out to our community. So NDP presentation grants are made to U.S. nonprofit presenting organizations for the support of engagements of NDP projects that are on tour. Projects that currently have NDP tour support can be found on our website or in our publications that come out twice annually. So the publication is available on any NDP webpage of NEFA.org. It also is published in August, and there will be one coming out shortly in December, so keep an eye out for that.
And we're especially excited about our new online directory, which this is showing you a screenshot of on your left. So if you haven't gone on to NEFA.org to check out the new online directory, we encourage you. That's where you'll find the latest and most up-to-date information on any and all projects that have NDP support. All right, so what does a presentation grant support? These grants can go to supporting up to 50% of the artist's fee, including the housing, the per diem, and travel. But note that just because it can go up to 50% of covering that, presentation grants aren't required to support up to 50%. So it could be anywhere from 20%, 35%, but the maximum is 50%. In order to be eligible, the organization and the engagement must include at least one public performance of the NDP project. And it can also include many other activities, which we'll talk about some examples of those later on. And the engagements must take place during an NDP project's 18-month-long NDP touring period. Each project has its own touring period, so it's really important to kind of keep that in mind and always check in with the tour coordinator of each project to make sure you know when their NDP touring period is taking place. Again, some examples of NDP-supported engagements and other things that they might include in addition to that one public performance are workshops, master classes, receptions, Q&As, and there's also many examples of presenters and artists and companies who are working together in lots of creative ways that are really sort of in direct support of that particular project. Themes that might include working with different curriculums with schools or universities, or also just working out in the community in really inventive ways. So what does a presentation grant not support? Equally important. So presentation grants don't support any projects that have already received funding through another NEFA grant program. Some of those would include FUSE, which is the French-US Exchange in Dance, or two of our New England touring and presenting programs, NEST or Expeditions. So if you're a presenter and you're already receiving support from NEFA from one of those programs, you can't sort of double up and also get NDP presentation grant support for the same engagement. It also doesn't support the presentation of a work that's not currently supported by NDP. So it's important to remember that the presentation grant support, the funding is really attached to a particular project and not to any work that company might have touring in their repertoire. It's also really important to make sure that the presentation is taking place within the NDP touring period, because if it's taking place outside of the NDP touring period of that particular project, then the presentation grant can't go to support that as well. And presentation grants also, and the next one, don't support performances that are only taking place as part of sort of exclusive fundraisers or galas, school performances, or competitions. And lastly, they don't support engagements that have already taken place. So when we start going over timelines and deadlines, definitely important to keep those in mind, because we can't fund anything that's already happened. All right, and I think we'll just unmute you here for a quick check-in to see if anybody has any questions so far.
She paid for it, started taking the trip, but then I guess reimbursed herself with the people she brought with.
I think we'll go ahead and move forward. All right, so now let's talk about eligibility. So who is eligible to receive an NDP presentation grant? Basically, any U.S.-based organization that is any one of the following: a 501c3 nonprofit organization, a unit of state or local government, an institution of higher education, or a federally recognized Indian tribal government. So it's important to note that you don't necessarily have to be a performance-based organization or even an arts-based organization. Certainly there have been many tours who have gone out to lots of different kinds of community organizations. So, you know, as long as you fall into one of these categories and are interested in supporting an NDP-funded project, you are eligible to get a presentation grant. The other thing to really keep in mind, though, is that in order to get a presentation grant, the very first thing that you have to talk to the tour coordinator so that they will include you on the artist tour plan. So let's talk a little bit more about the details of how all of this works. Okay, so individual artists, the very first step is that the artist or the company itself would apply to NDP for either a production grant. We award approximately 18 of those annually, and those are announced in August of every year. Or the artist or the company would apply directly to NDP for a touring award. Those applications, that deadline falls in October, and we announce usually the 6 to 10 touring award grantees in December. So those artists and companies apply directly to NDP for a specific project. And then all NDP awarded projects receive up to $35,000 that will support their tour in the U.S. So we kind of think of that $35,000 as you know, money that we hold in reserve, almost like we put it in a savings account for each project, so that once their tour is all planned and set up, they tell us how they're going to distribute that $35,000 to support the tour. So the money itself is allocated by each artist and company, but it's given out in the form of the presentation grant. So each project has a tour coordinator that is designated, and that tour coordinator is in charge of doing all of the negotiation directly with presenters, so any of you. They are the ones that can tell you the NDP touring period for each project. They can discuss all of the technical requirements. They would negotiate the exact fee, what that fee is going to include, if it's going to be all-inclusive, or if it's going to be a fee plus travel and housing, you know, how many days, how many performances, how many workshops, you know, all of the different things that the engagement is going to include. All of that negotiation would happen directly with the tour coordinator and you. And then the tour coordinators determine how they're going to divide up that $35,000 between all of the presenters on the tour. There are lots of different ways that that can happen. We don't set any particular boundaries other than it can't be more than 50% of whatever you as the presenter are paying that artist or company for their fee, including any travel. And then those tour coordinators submit that information to NEFA via a tour plan by a given deadline. We have 2 each year, one in March and one in October. So we've just had a tour plan deadline pass where we've heard from tour coordinators giving us their tour plans, letting us know how they're going to put that $35,000 to use. So NEFA uses this tour plan to invite presenters to apply for the presentation grant. So again, first step is you've got to talk to the tour coordinator and do all of your negotiating directly with them. Get on that tour plan, and then when we get that tour plan, that's pretty much our go button to contact any of the presenters included on a tour plan and get the presentation grant application process started. Generally, between the tour plan deadline, when that gets submitted to us, and when the presentation grant applications are due to NEFA, there's about a 4-week period that you all have to work on those presentation grant applications. Okay, so why are tour plan deadlines important? So the tour plan, again, is what the tour coordinator for each project is responsible for submitting to NEFA. So this isn't something that you yourself submit to NEFA. But it's important for you to know about this and to keep this in mind, because those tour plans basically tell us what the confirmed engagements are, and they tell us that those negotiations have been finalized with you in terms of how much the subsidy is going to be. So, you know, for instance, if a tour plan comes into us with 4 different presenters on it, you know, they may divide that $35,000 up differently between each presenter, depending on what each engagement is going to include, as well as where that presenter is in the country. There's a number of factors, as many of you know, that go into those negotiations. For instance, the size of the tour, if it's a smaller scale project with not a lot of technical specifications, or if it's a really big project with a really big company and a huge set, that's going to impact their fee, and it's going to impact how much they're able to offer you of their subsidy. Certainly the number of performances that a company is going to be asked to do will also impact that, as well as if they're going to be in town longer. Certainly there are engagements that take place over 1 or 2 nights, and then certainly there are many that take place over the course of an entire week, and in cases, multiple weeks. So the length of the engagement will certainly go into that, the travel and the housing costs, as well as any other engagement activities that you want to talk with the company about doing while they're in town. And again, just to remember, presenters are eligible for up to 50% of the artist fee, including travel. But again, should be aware that that is a negotiation, so not all presentation grants will equal 50% of the artist fee. Okay. All right. So another thing to just keep in mind is that, you know, once we get those tour plans and invite you to apply for the presentation grant, and you submit that application to NEFA and it gets approved, those presentation grant amounts are final. So you want to make sure that the information that's included on that tour plan and in the subsequent application are final and exactly what you expected and what the artist expected. All right, so upcoming tour plan deadlines are, we had again one that just passed in October of 2015. So some of you on this call may have been on a tour plan and might be in the process of working on your presentation grant. The next tour plan deadline will be coming up in March of 2016, on March 7th. And so that March 7th, 2016 tour plan deadline needs to include any engagements that are going to take place beginning in June of 2016 or later. And so if you're looking at engagements that are falling June 2016 or after, then this is the next time you could potentially be included on a project tour plan to get some of that tour support. And that presentation grant deadline that will follow that will be on April 11th, 2016. And then the next one after that, again, will take place next October. October 17th of 2016 is when the artist tour plans will be due to NDP from tour coordinators. And that will be to capture engagements that are beginning in January 2017 or later. We know that many of you work on very different timelines in terms of how early you confirm projects or how late you confirm projects. Oftentimes festivals may work on a much shorter timeline where you're finalizing some projects, you know, within a few months before the festival begins. Others of you may be well into planning and confirming engagements for your 2017-2018 season and all the way in between. So hopefully having these 2 different deadlines each year will offer you some more possibilities of when you can get support to bring an NDP-funded project as part of your season. Okay, and again, so the tour plan deadlines happen first, and about 4 weeks later is when we need the presentation grant from you all. So those next deadlines are, for those of you who were on a tour plan this October, You should be working on your presentation grant applications right now as we speak, and they are due to us on November 16th, so in just a few weeks. And again, those would be for engagement beginning no sooner than January of 2016 or anytime after that. And then the next presentation grant deadline after that will be next spring, again in April of 2016. And again, that's for engagements that will begin no sooner than June of 2016. Let's see.
So, to review, to be eligible for a presentation grant, you must be a nonprofit organization, unit of state or local government, institution of higher education, or a federally recognized Indian tribal government. You must negotiate with the tour coordinator for the artist fee and tour subsidy. Without that, you will not be invited to apply. You must be included on the tour plan before the given deadline, and you must be presenting at least one public performance of the project during the 18-month touring period. Does anyone have any questions at the moment?
We'll go ahead and unmute you. So if you've got a question, speak up. Otherwise, we'll proceed.
Okay.
All right. Don't worry, there'll be more opportunities. All right, and now I'm going to hand it over to Sherry.
So we're going to go through the presentation grant application process. So you must confirm your presenting plans by formally requesting this fee, subsidy, or grant amount with this online application form by this next deadline of Monday, November 16th, 2015. So NDP staff, we've sent an email to the presenting organizations to invite them to apply for a very specific amount of money that has been on the tour plan and for a specific project and specific artist. There is no limit to the number of presentation grants a presenter may receive, so you might actually be on 3 or 4 touring plans, and that's wonderful. But you do need to fill in a separate application and submit a separate application for each NDP project. And we'll review the deadlines in the following slides for the 2016 deadlines, and they will be available on the website soon. So the application process is, first you start by searching for the project that you are applying for. So when you go to our website, you can click on the dance icon or dance link that's right under grants and programs. And that will bring you to the page where you can see the NDP Touring Artists with Subsidy link. It's the blue box underneath the publication. And by clicking on that, you'll come to our artist directory. And you can either put the artist name in the sort by link there at the top, or you can just scroll down. The artists are listed in alphabetical order. And once you've found your artist, you're going to click on that and scroll down, and you'll come to the Start Your Grant Request blue button. So by starting that button, that will take you to the correct form. So you do want to link it to the specific artist that you are applying for.
And for any of you who have gone through this process before, this part is a little bit different since we've introduced our online directory. So that looks unfamiliar to you, that's because it's brand new.
You can always call me and I'll be happy to walk you through this process. So the application process, the Start Your Grant Request, once you've clicked that, that will bring you to the login, and your username is your email address. Some of you may not yet have an account with us, so you'll be creating a new account, but to know that your username is your email address. And then if you've forgotten your password, you can click I can't access the account and you'll get sent a password. You can also change your password as you're moving along. And once you've started an application, I would encourage you to scroll down immediately and choose the artist that you are submitting the application for, especially if you are going to be filling out multiple applications. That way you'll be able to keep them straight. And also to put in your organization's information and contact record and save. If you can do that in your first sitting, it'll be very easy for you to find your application, again, especially if you are an organization that has had multiple applications with NEFA or with NDP. We do encourage you to hit the save button frequently. When you need to stop working on your application, just go ahead and hit the log out button. And then when you want to come back to work on your application, you can come back to NEFA's website and click on any, sorry, oh, am I jumping ahead? you can go to any back to your return to your grant form on any blue button anywhere on our website, or you can go back to that initial page where the artists were and click on that return to your grant form button. But any of those will get you back to the form that you have already started. Couple of tips. We encourage you to write your answers to your narrative questions in a Word doc and then cut and paste. So you're not spending a lot of time writing into your form, and we just don't want you to lose any of that data. So by cutting and pasting into a Word doc, you'll save yourself some time. And just to continue to save the form often. Oh, okay, thanks. Okay. So once you've started an application form and hit save, you can return to your form again by clicking on the return to your grant request blue button on the presentation grant webpage. Okay. Once you've saved the form, you'll see that there are fields that you might not have yet filled in yet, and they will let you know what you need to continue to do to fill in the form. You can go along the top of the page to get to the next tab by saving, and then hitting the edit button will then again open up the form for you to any page that you need to add to. For instance, attachments, you'll need your W-9 form from your organization. You'll also need to add your organization's DUNS number in the details tab on the first page. So the application will ask you to provide an explanation on how the engagement, some of the activities that will be happening, as well as an explanation of how you will make the engagement accessible to persons with disabilities. NEFA supports universal access to the arts, and you can read our Arts and Accessibility section on our website for more information. And the application will ask you to provide an explanation on how the engagement will be made accessible to persons with disabilities, taking into account physical access, programmatic access via large print and signage, sign language interpretation, assisted living, listening devices, transportation, etc. And all of our NEFA grantees are required to submit or to have been working on the ADA workbook self-evaluation. And you can also access that workbook from our website. So you will also be asked for narrative questions, asking you about the engagement itself, your marketing strategy, if you're working with any other community organizations or any other groups in planning the engagement. And again, I would encourage you to write the answers to those in a Word doc so that you can save that and paste it in. So again, also you will need to upload your W-9 form, and you can see the www.irs.gov for the current version, also a Duns and Bradstreet number. And again, you can access that from our website as well to get a number for your application if you don't already have an organizational DUNS number. So awarded presentation grants. So your application, you will be notified within 6 to 8 weeks after you've completed your application. Grantees will receive an award letter with details on crediting and reporting requirements. And the grants are paid as reimbursement grants upon the submission and approval of the online final report. And as long as all eligibility requirements have been met, your presentation grant will likely be awarded. Again, the grant is paid as a reimbursement, but with notice and approval, we can usually advance up to 75% of the grant ahead of the time to help with cash flow, artist fees, etc. We really do want these engagements to happen. So please contact us if you're having any questions or concerns regarding artist fees or any other things that you need to do in order to pay the artist. And letters confirming your grant award will be mailed by the end of December of 2015. One of the other items that will be in your award letter will be crediting information. And again, it's very important to us and to you that the crediting information is complete and accurate. So we ask that you include this crediting line on all of your promotional materials, website, programs, etc. And we also have a logo, NEFA's logo, that you can download from our website as well. So it's important to acknowledge the program and the funders who have made this grant possible, and all crediting instructions are available on NEFA's website. So, getting your grant payment. In order to receive your grant payment, all awarded presentation grantees must submit a final report by the due date. And again, the due date is set by your end date that you put into the project on your details tab of your application. So if, for example, that changes, please contact me and I can change that for you. Otherwise, the due date is set 40 days at the end of the engagement. And you will receive a little reminder about that. Once you have had the engagement and you fill in the final report, you will also need to upload copies of the program and publicity materials, a signed receipt form, and any photos of the NDP-supported engagement. And we're really interested in photos that show the artists interacting with your community. So, and we post those on our website. We use them in some of our reports. So to get to your final report, you would go back to the NEFA website, and you can, again, click on any return to your grant form. That will bring you to the portal, and then you will see that your final report is attached right underneath the grant request that went with that application. So again, remember that the sooner you submit your final report, the sooner you will receive your grant check. So it is again due within 40 days after the completed engagement, and grant payments are paid upon submission and approval of the final report, and again including the publicity, the high resolution photos from the engagement, and the receipt form signed by the artist and the company. And this is an example of the receipt form. We don't ask to have you upload the full contract. Our main interest is really in ensuring that the artist was paid the fee that you said that you were going to pay them in your application. So I would encourage you to download this form and have it at the ready at the engagement. And that way you have the artist or their management right there. Fill it in with the amount that you paid them. And again, it may be all inclusive, or you may break it down with artist fee, housing, per diem, and travel. And then they sign it, you sign it, and you upload that with your final report form. Just changes, cancellations, or postponements. Once a presentation grant is made, the amount of the grant is final unless the total artist fee is reduced. So if your grant amount was really right at that threshold of 50%, and then for whatever circumstances that artist fee is reduced, we will have to reduce it accordingly. The presenter should really contact NEFA in writing for approval of any cancellations or postponements. If there is a postponement for whatever reason, please do reach out to us. We want these engagements to happen, and we will really work with you and the artist to have that engagement if it means, postponing it, but we really do need to have that information in writing. So please, contact us with any changes. So our deadlines review, just to recap, the tour coordinators will have a tour plan deadline in March of every year, where presenters on that tour plan will have an April deadline. And then tour coordinators will have another tour plan deadline in October of every year, and then the presenter will have a November deadline. And we are hoping that by offering these 2 presentation grant deadlines, that it gives you more opportunity to get onto a tour plan form, and just helps work with the artist and the presenter, because we understand, again, that you both have very different, some very short timelines, some of you very long timelines. So we're really trying to work with all of you as much as we can to make these successful engagements. So, to get on a tour plan, please contact the tour coordinator as soon as you can. So we encourage you to come to our website, search for artists, look at projects, and even if you're not sure about all of your booking, the sooner you talk to a tour coordinator and let them know that you might be interested in the project, actually the better chance you will have of getting an NDP subsidy.
And keep in mind, too, that there are also video work samples of all of the artists and companies that have tour support that you can also view on our website. They may not be of the actual project. If it's a new work, they probably don't have video samples of it yet, but it's a great way to be introduced to new artists and companies and get an idea of what their work may entail.
And stay tuned for our upcoming December publication for our next group of touring awards. And to see what other organizations have received NDP presentation grants in the past, you can click on Grant Recipients at the top header and filter for National Dance Project Presentation Grants. Sometimes we find that presenters are interested in seeing, what other presenters might be presenting or have presented, and that might be a way for you to also consider somebody that you might want to work with block booking in the future. So it's a good way to kind of start to network with other presenters.
And all right, so we're going to go ahead and unmute you all again so that we can answer any questions that you all might have. And I think, let's see, we've got about 20 minutes if we need it to go ahead and review anything and answer questions. So if you have a question, if you'll identify yourself by name first, and then let us know your question.
No questions?
Could somebody say hello?
Just so we know someone's there and that it's working.
Do I not have...